Sir. We're all on one page.
Hi, my name is Bill Nelson. I'm from Ridgefield. First thing I want to do is thank Kevin in your office for arranging tours of the White House as it happened during Christmas time, which was a difficult time. My son has a mental illness, and because of that, he could not qualify for regular insurance, so he went on the Husky plan, which is the state Husky charter oak plan, which cannot refuse people because of prior conditions. His premium through Husky was $480 a month. And he has a low income, so I was paying that. We got a letter from the state saying the Husky was being ended because of Obamacare. We put him on the Obamacare program. His premiums are now $17 a month. And he has some pretty expensive medications that he needs to take. So we're quite happy with his condition. He's 34, so he could not be on my plan. The other thing I'd like to say is I own a company with 60 employees. It costs us about $8,000 to $10,000 a year per employee for the insurance. But we have absolutely no intention of reducing our workforce below 50, which we could easily do. We have a manufacturing company in Bethel, and we intend to keep it there and keep our plans with Connecticut for as long as we can afford.
Thank you very much.
How you doing? My name is Paul Skeffington. I live in Shelton. I'm father of three. My question is actually rather simple. I think the answer is probably not so simple. My concern really is for the future of my kids, future of, I think, everyone's kids in America. The national debt, and we brought it up. It's over 17 trillion. We have what we call the debt ceiling, and quite frankly, I think it should be called a debt target, because we always hit it, and there are always raises, So really, what's the plan for the future? How are we going to get out of this? How are we going to get out of the fact that we owe so much? How are we going to get out of the fact that we're basically printing money to stay out of it? I honestly think what happened in 2008 with the real estate collapse, what's coming next is way bigger than that. And we're not going to be able to print our way out of it. So I ask you, how are we going to get out of it? How are we going to get out of our debt?
Yeah. Well, thank you for your question, and you framed it exactly right. So the question was about debt, look, it shouldn't be a political thing. It shouldn't be a Democratic thing or a Republican thing. When we borrow to buy something today, it could be a tank, could be a highway, whatever the government buys. If we borrow to do that, we're basically saying someone down the road gets to pay for what we get to consume today. Now, sometimes that's okay. If you do that to build a highway, and the highway's going to last 50 years, that's probably okay, because people will take advantage of it for 50 years. We've spent a lot of money on tanks in the last 15 years and other weapons of war that, is sort of beyond the scope of this conversation. But anyway, the reason I say that is because you said, what do we do about it? We continue to do. The answer is we continue to do what we have been doing in the last 3 years. Somebody correctly pointed out that the deficit has not gone, but the deficit has gone from $1.5 trillion a year to about a third of that. That's actually a pretty rapid decline in the deficit, and we need to keep it going. Now, by the way, some people say, and I probably agree with them, that that decline might have been a little rapid, that we might have actually hurt the recovery because of the sequester. Because people got laid off at Sikorsky and at Pratt Whitney and whatnot, and when they're laid off, they're collecting food stamps or unemployment. So anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But the answer to your question, sir, is we kind of keep the trajectory where it has gone for the last 4 years, including having the kind of conversation that groups like AARP and others need to come together to have about the long-term viability of Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid. Very difficult discussion to have, but an important one to have, because if we don't have that discussion, we don't actually continue the trend that has been going on for 4 years. And by the way, set aside the question of continuing that trend, these are programs, they've been accused of being inefficient. That's actually not quite right. The Medicare system is a good deal more efficient than private health insurance companies are in terms of their overhead and costs. So quite apart from keeping up the trend of reducing our deficit till it gets to a much more sustainable place, we need to have this conversation to make those programs, which are benefiting a lot of people in this room, Social Security and Medicare, to make them there for the next 3 generations.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
To
given the fact that we have so many entitlements, we have Social Security, we have all these things, and you said it yourself at the start, that we're paying into the future, you know, so everything that we're basically paying out right now, or everything that we're spending as a country, is basically going to our kids and our grandkids to pay back. You know, all the money that we've printed since 2008, at some point has to become inflationary, it has to have an impact on our economy. That's the part. What do we do with all that printed money? I mean, right now it sits in the stock market. Stock market looks like it's doing great, but that money hasn't come to Main Street. It's gone to Wall Street. You know, at some point there's going to be some sort of black swan event, something that's going to happen, exactly what happened in 2008. My fear is it's going to be much bigger.
Yeah. Look, your point is a fair one. And again, I'm not going to say what I said earlier about the answer to the debt is to continue to take some of the hard decisions, hopefully, by the way, smarter than we did. The sequester is a really dumb way to cut the budget because it just says everything gets cut. But anyway, I don't want to repeat myself and say that. But you make a good point, although I think you're taking the most pessimistic conclusion. Yes, the Federal Reserve has put a lot of, the economic term is liquidity, into the system. They put a lot of money into the system. And they have begun to pull back through, as you know, because you watch this stuff, through the taper. And they have a heck of a, you know, fine and careful challenge in the next 3 to 5 years, which is to bring in some of that money to, you know, probably raise some of those interest rates, sir, in a way that if you raise those interest rates too fast, it'll hurt the economic recovery. If you bring that money in too fast, or if you bring it in too slow, it could cause inflation. So yes, this is actually something that we in the Congress on the monetary side don't have a lot to do with. But your point is right. They've got a real challenge in rebalancing that for the fact that we're out of that recession. And, you know, like everybody, my fingers are crossed that they do it in such a way that doesn't generate inflation.